Hello, and welcome to the Old Soul Archaeology Podcast. My name is Michelle Janae. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Are you ready to dig deep? Hello, my name is Michelle Janae with Old Soul Archaeology. I want to introduce to you my guest today. Joie Gharrity, founder of 113 Branding, is a brand director, author, and international speaker. She worked in the Hollywood entertainment industry for 15 plus years at top companies in film, television, original web content, and branded entertainment. She was handpicked by the ABC studio president to launch the first multimedia startup business for the Walt Disney Company. After returning to the Bay Area, Joie was inspired to launch 113 Branding. She works with entrepreneurs and creative types to leverage their expertise, gifts, and talents. She integrates her strategic branding and marketing vision with both the creative and business sides of the entertainment industry through her unique, tested, and proven system, the 113 Branding Superstar Visibility and Influence System. Her system includes digital branding and marketing strategies, tools, techniques, and tips that increase their brand visibility and influence that elevates her clients to superstar status in the marketplace. Joie, welcome so much to Old Soul Sojourn. It's really good to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me, sister.
Oh, I'm super excited to have this conversation. So you and I go back a couple of years, and I want to talk about your business, 113 Branding. I want to reintroduce your story. I think at one point I had you on a podcast years ago, which is archived somewhere. And so reintroducing you fresh to the world, my understanding is that you did a beautiful stint in Hollywood, and that has influenced where you are now. Do you want to catch us up and tell us what 113 Branding is all about?
Sure. So what I've done is I believe that a big part of my purpose was to go down to Hollywood, learn for masters, take a bunch of stuff I learned down there in my toolbox, right? And then add a bunch of my own and then a lot of heart center around it. So what I do is I help women, entrepreneurs, creative types to really turn up their spotlight of their visibility and influence that they stand in and shine a really bright spotlight on their company brand because it's directly linked to our earning power.
Great. So let's just back up a little bit further. What attracted you to Hollywood? What was it about you growing up that said, I just knew I had to go down there?
Well, I actually wasn't attracted to it. I was always in love with movies. My dad, his one day off was on Sundays. And so he grew up in a very religious family and then went to church. And he decided rather than we go to church, we went to the movie theaters every Sunday.
Wow.
So I was indoctrinated into this life of the big screen and movies and emotions and how they made me feel. And I just had such a passion for it. And an influencer in San Francisco who met me, he was like, "You remind me a lot of my family down there that were very established in Hollywood." And he's like, "So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you an offer." He's like, I have a place down there. He's like, "I'll give you that place for 3 months." And he's like, "And I'm going to be seeing my brother, who's an agent at a major agency in Hollywood, in 1 week. And if you are there at 9 a.m. in the morning," he's like, "I'll know that you're serious and I'll ask him to get you a job."
Wow.
And that's how it all started. So it really started with someone leveraging and giving, and sharing their influence with me. And that was the start of my understanding of how important visibility and influence is, because you can be of service to others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. So what does the 113 stand for?
Sure, it's in homage to Coco Chanel and Marilyn Monroe. So I'm a huge fan of Chanel because she's one of the greatest women entrepreneurs like globally to date. She helped change the way that women dressed, right? And really stood in her spotlight. And so 113 is for 1 + 1 + 3 is 5 for Chanel number 5, because that's actually what built her empire, not her clothing, but Chanel number 5. Mm-hmm. And because Marilyn Monroe, when she was asked what did she wear when she went to bed at night, she said, "I only wear one thing, and that's Chanel number 5." These are two women entrepreneurs from different sides of the globe, right? Never met each other. And yet, because of Marilyn's generosity of spirit, because she really was about supporting other women out there, um, that put her on the map, Coco on the map, and with Chanel #5 in the United States. And because Chanel developed Chanel #5, that helped elevate Marilyn Monroe's superstardom. So it really is about this collective that these two amazing women, and so my name, the 113 branding, is in homage to both of them.
I love the way you broke that down. Instead of saying #5 branding, you really gave it this kind of higher essence in, talking about maybe Coco Chanel is one and Marilyn Monroe is one, and when they get together, it's multiplied, so it's like 3 plus, right? So that going beyond the obvious of 1 plus 1 is 2, now we have 113. What do you think that means? I mean, it really kind of draws you in once the story is out there. It's fabulous. And I see you doing this in your groups, in your posts, with your publicity. But I want to talk about this from an old soul perspective. I know you're very spiritual, and sometimes our world can fool us into thinking that business isn't or shouldn't be spiritual, and that the spotlight, especially for women, is not spiritual or not appropriate. Tell me about how spirituality shows up for you personally in your business, and how you use that to leverage or to help other women leverage their own powerful spotlight.
Well, I was just, listen, an influencer brought me down to Hollywood. It changed my life,
Mhm.
right? I saw my name in lights in a credit roll. The first movie I ever worked on was Stargate. And my brother and I, and because that influencer brought me down there, I was able to bring my brother and
Mm.
some other friends down there too, right? Influence does generate, if it's done from the heart, it's very generous, right?
Yeah.
And yet that credit roll, my brother and I never forget that moment when we saw our names in lights. It's the only industry that actually does that. And people are like, well, and Hollywood does have another side to it. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But that generosity of sharing that spotlight with me and saying, thank you for doing this, was huge. It made such an impact on me. And so, paying it forward started to really play a part in my life at a very young age down there, and me starting to learn from other mentors. I remember my first mentor, Roland Emmerich from Stargate Independence Day. I remember asking him, like, why he was so passionate about, because he'd raised like $100 million for a blockbuster, right? And to me, that was like I couldn't wrap my head around that. Like, who has the capacity to
Yeah.
hold $100 million and it come true? So he was so being in this alignment with certain people down there was actually teaching me what I'm teaching now, which is my purpose to bring to the masses. That he just had a love bucket capacity to hold $100 million, but it went beyond that. He's like, but Joey, this is how people are paying for their mortgages. This is how they're sending their kids to college. This is all paying it forward,
Yeah.
right? And this is what I believe in my spirituality, that's all, it's all in my teachings. I might not say this is spiritual,
Right. Right.
right? But my teachings really are about the spirituality of how are we going to pay it forward. Can't go it alone. It's only together that we're going to be able to rise. But it's getting past the small stuff that's just dragging us down. Like, let's all dream big, right? And it doesn't have to be your dream around $100 million. However, whatever the dream is, how is that going to perpetuate someone, something, somehow to be of service out in the marketplace?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I know that a lot of times you're not overtly spiritual, but I know this about you, and that's really why I wanted you on the podcast, because I think it's important to say that you don't have to use woo-woo words or show up in a certain garb to appear spiritual or whatever. I mean, you're wholly you, but knowing you as I do, knowing that you meditate, knowing that you have this heart-centered connection, I think is really important for people to understand, because it's evident once they get into what you're doing, but it can also easily be bypassed, when we don't really know someone. And so what I think is the power that you have is in that 1+1 = 3, right? Or that networking power. You're so generous with the publicity. And what I really love is how you give people a taste of what it's like to experience that spotlight, because you do so much with rolling credits in posts or sharing. And it really is pivotal, I think, for people to, although I think sometimes it can feel like, oh crap, like, so tell me how you work with your clients to get them past the oh crap moment, to get them to really go, wait a minute, this does feel good. And that oh crap was just maybe a product of former conditioning.
Yes. Listen, there's a couple things about me. Okay. I'm not, I'm coining myself as the new face of love. Okay.
Mm,
Because I'm not a flower child. I wasn't brought up, I'm not a big hugger. I'm not over, I'm just not that girl.
yeah.
But yet, I know there's a lot of people like me out there who are just like, we can be all about love.
Mhm.
We just don't look the part necessarily, right? And the other reason I do things like the paparazzi behind me is because I want to shake the marketplace to stop and think and get curious about things and say, oh, why would she put a paparazzi on herself? I'm like, no, I'm putting it on myself, and I'm also shining that bright light behind me on everyone out there. It's just like a muscle.
Mhm.
It's like once my first credit roll, I was like, like I had to take a deep breath. It really shook me. I remember that night my brother and I were like, whoa, right? But with time you get used to it. And then the second credit roll, it's easier. And the third credit roll, it got easier. And the fourth, of course, it's like anything, it becomes a second skin or normalcy for you, right? And my job to bring to the masses is to remind them that it is their birthright. It is your birthright to stand in your spotlight, to share your gifts and talents with the world. It's not for a select few, right? And
Right.
so I'm doing this in a way where I'm putting my clients or people that I admire like yourself in a spotlight to so that you guys could start swimming in it. Because guess what? Then you guys, like you're doing right now, you spotlighting others. You
Right.
spotlight me, right? And then it becomes a pay it forward over and over and over again. Because sister, there are people out there that have never ever had the spotlight on them ever,
Right.
and they feel and your vibration, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't
Mhm.
feel good. It starts becoming their new normal, and that's not what it's about, right? So it really is just expression. So that is why I made my Facebook group and other things double as a pure spotlight, so that people when they're in it, they're like, at first like, oh, this is so uncomfortable, but with time, right? Not only does it become more comfortable, but they're enthusiastic about doing it for others.
Right. Right. It's beautiful. I think that so much of the showing up part is really that spiritual journey, right? As we incarnate on this earth, and we are, like Marianne Williamson said, we are this, that, and all that, right? Who are you not to shine? And I keep going back to that quote in my own life, because I have had these struggles, right? And um, again, you and I have known each other for a few years. You've seen me step into the spotlight and step back for whatever um, thing, issue I was going through at the moment. But it really feels like coming home to a place that's safe when you step into your own self. So let's talk about that for a minute, because I'm sure you have people that come on board with you and work with you that really want spotlight, but they're not quite sure what they're bringing to the spotlight. How do you work through that with someone who, they really want to shine, but they're not quite aligned with their own soul, their own self yet?
Yeah. So what listen, we all know what our purpose is. We probably know as early about 6. This is part of the teachings that I'm sharing out there. It's just that what happens is life happens
Mm-hmm.
and situations happen. So we start getting farther and farther. What I'm referring to as your purpose, I refer to as a factor, right? And there was years when I was in Hollywood and I was walking around, sister. I mean, I lived in Hollywood, right? And I was walking around and I was like, oh, they're so lucky. How did how do you get so lucky to be born as dot dot dot? I hope
Yeah.
next time, if there is a next time, I get that lucky. I mean, that's what I was seriously thinking this all the time.
Yeah.
And it took me years to finally realize, whoa, 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 whoa. No, no, no. We're all born with an it factor, right? But we first you have to say yes to just knowing that. That's the first step. And that was my first step, right? It's just going, no, wait a second. Jennifer Aniston isn't more special than me. A Rockefeller is not more special than me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Being born into a last name or being born, it's just that some people get born into it and it's just handed to them because of their last name. Some people just get back to it sooner. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So when I finally said yes to the calling, it didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like, because I thought I was going to be in Hollywood for the rest of my career.
Mm.
That wasn't my true purpose. That was to gain the tools, the techniques, the strategies to really start helping to form what my real purpose was, right? And so saying yes is the first. The second step is that by what I realized is that the reason I was around so many of these superstars is that I was supposed to learn the lesson, which I just got a couple years ago. And it's not that anyone's more talented. It's just that they say yes to their calling. That's step one. They don't necessarily know what it is yet, but you
Yeah.
got to say yes. And then the second thing is that you have to be able to take in massive amounts of love. And that's what my second book's about. It's called Be Your Own Superstar, right? And it's not that Will Smith or Katy Perry or Sarah Jessica Parker or any of these people that I was around for whatever reason, whatever movie I was working on, etc. It's not that they're more talented. It's just that they've been able to work on their inner game where they can take in mass amounts of love, because fame, fortune, goals, desires, dreams is all at the same level of the capacity of how much you can hold, which is love.
Mm-hmm.
Money is just love. It's just love. So if someone is going to hand you $1 million, right, or $100 million, right, it's just that my mentor at the time, he could hold all that because his capacity was at $100 million level in alignment.
Well,
So
and it
this is
sounds
what I
like he
do with my
didn't he
clients. I
didn't
work with
really.
them. I'm like,
Sorry, we have a overlap.
no,
So it.
no, no, he already recognized his purpose and his it factor, right?
Yeah.
And because he said yes to that, he was able to have a capacity to take in all the love that you need to take in to become that famous, right? Because fans and money and recognition and being seen and being heard for your purpose, it's just love,
Mhm.
right? Or people go, oh, will you take a picture with me? Here's something free. Here's a free dinner. I'm going to give you the best seat in the house. All of that is just love. So you got to just get your capacity there. But first, you got to say yes to the calling, and then your calling will and has been revealing itself. It's just that we tend to, in myself, I was running from it for years, sister,
Yeah.
running. That's why I was making everyone else a star, because I was running from the visibility, right? I wasn't running from the influence, but I was certainly running from the visibility piece. So when I said yes to my calling and getting back to my it factor, and they started revealing it to me, I freaked out. I'll be honest. I had a complete meltdown, because I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You mean that my calling is to bring visibility and influence? That means I have to get visible? That's something I've been running from for years, right? So it's not like I said, it didn't take overnight, sister. It took me a couple years for me to fully embrace the calling, fully embrace my purpose. And there's still days I don't want to, I want to run from it. I won't and I can't. But of course, there's days I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I think that it's easy to see people, whether it's in Hollywood or even watching you or so many other people on Facebook, how we show up is that we often don't know what goes on behind the scenes, the struggles, the stories, and we all have those stories of doubt and
Mm.
insecurity and shame that we're trying to get over. And so I really appreciate you sharing that with us because I think it's important to know that when we choose to work with someone, that we're dealing with someone that's also very realistic about where we might be in the walk. And I also love the yes factor that really allows for synchronicities, right? It's that yes that opens the door.
Yeah, it is the yes. And and listen, let's get very authentic, okay? No one that anyone admires out there, it did not happen overnight.
Right.
Absolutely not. There was a journey, there was the calling, there was the yes, there was them getting back to their factor, there's inner game that's going on, right? There's outer. He didn't, he already recognized his purpose and his it factor, right?
Yeah.
And because he said yes to that, he was able to have a capacity to take in all the love that you need to take in to become that famous, right? Because fans and money and recognition and being seen and being heard for your purpose, it's just love,
Mhm.
right? For people go, oh, will you take a picture with me? Here's something free. Here's a free dinner. I'm going to give you the best seat in the house. All of that is just love. So you got to just get your capacity there. But first, you got to say yes to the calling, and then your calling will and has been revealing itself. It's just that we tend to, in myself, I was running from it for
Mm.
years, sister,
Yeah.
running. That's why I was making everyone else a star, because I was running from the visibility, right? I wasn't running from the influence, but I was certainly running from the visibility piece. So when I said yes to my calling and getting back to my it factor, and they started revealing it to me, I freaked out. I'll be honest. I had a complete meltdown, because I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You mean that my calling is to bring visibility and influence? That means I have to get visible? That's something I've been running from for years, right? So it's not like I said, it didn't take overnight, sister. It took me a couple years for me to fully embrace the calling, fully embrace my purpose. And there's still days I don't want to, I want to run from it. I won't and I can't. But of course, there's days I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I think that it's easy to see people, whether it's in Hollywood or even watching you or so many other people on Facebook, how we show up is that we often don't know what goes on behind the scenes, the struggles, the stories, and we all have those stories of doubt and
Mm.
insecurity and shame that we're trying to get over. And so I really appreciate you sharing that with us because I think it's important to know that when we choose to work with someone, that we're dealing with someone that's also very realistic about where we might be in the walk. And I also love the yes factor that really allows for synchronicities, right? It's that yes that opens the door.
Yeah, it is the yes. And listen, let's get very authentic, okay? no one that anyone admires out there, it did not happen overnight.
Right.
Absolutely not. There was a journey, there was the calling, there was the yes, there was them getting back to their factor, there's inner game that's going on, right? There's outer game that's going on. The ones that don't have the inner game that can handle all that love and their love capacity is low, you see them like publicly starting to fall apart, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't one day, sister, that goes by that I'm not grappling with my own internal yeses, my own internal purpose. But the difference is that when I said yes to the calling and the purpose, my daily habits, my Be Your Own Superstar daily habits, they that becomes the discipline, right?
Mm.
Because I got to walk my talk. I can't ask others to do that, something I won't do for myself. So it's the inner game, and then me growing my love bucket capacity, right? That keeps me in the game so that I'm not, my house of cards aren't falling, and then falling again, and then falling again. But of course, there's times during the day where I'm ah, but then I have a strategy, a technique in particular that I do every single morning, and and I hear it and it shows up, right? So I'll share it with everyone, right? It's going to be in my book. But I'm putting it out there early because I want people to start using it now. And what you do is I have a cheering that I found that you can find a crowd
Oh,
screaming,
yeah, yeah.
and then you just hit it, use your phone, and then I imagine myself walking into a stadium, and because now it's interactive, it's three-dimensional, right? It's like I hear everyone screaming for me, and I see all these faces and everyone in there jumping up and down. They're like, Joey, and then they're screaming, and I set my intention, and this is where I begin, and I start with, I am love, I am loved, and everyone's screaming for it, right? And then I set the intentions, my intentions for the day, my intentions for the week, my intentions for the month, right? But as I go through my day, sister, and when I start feeling my vibrations going down, or who am I to think dot dot dot,
Mm.
I'll hear the cheer will show up again, and they're cheering me on, and it gets me back into my purpose and it gets my vibrations up again.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think I'll insert a clip if I can find some cheering so we can take a minute to experience
It's
that.
so fun. It's so much fun. I even have my husband doing it, and he's like, this is awesome. I'm like, because it doesn't matter what your vocation is. It doesn't matter about your last name, your gender, ethnicity, your age. Let's all kick that to the curb. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is that you say yes to your true purpose, right? And it can look any way you want it to look. It doesn't have to be People. I don't believe in People magazine. It doesn't have to be any of that. You don't have to be a star, but you got to be a star in your own life,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? Otherwise, life is not. It's your dreams. It's like a stop and go system, right? You get going, and then all of a sudden you want to burn the whole house down, right? Stop and
Been
go
there.
system, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is to be of service, to truly be of service, is not to burn the house down,
Yeah.
to keep going, because there are people out there you're impacting. You really are. Just like that one influencer, he changed my whole life, right? Taking me down there. But I also changed lives too, sister,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, and I've been there and I've burned some houses down, but I'm learning
Yeah,
not to. So
we all have. We all burned down the house. And then we're down there with the cinders, and we're like, what do we do? What did we just do? Right?
yeah, yeah. So then the choice is to rise like the phoenix. Yes.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you did publish a book a few years ago. Tell us a little bit about that, and then give us a prelude to your new book and how they're different. I know it publishes later this year, so we're going to be like on pins and needles.
Yeah. So the first book is called The Red Carpet Guide to Visibility Influence. This was just my level one of my system, where I'm teaching people you got to get on the red carpet. Like, that's saying the yes. That book
Yeah,
is all
yeah.
about the yes. I share about my journey of me getting to the yes, right? Doesn't matter if you're in JOB or you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter, right? And then also I share tangibles. So it doubles as a guide, tangibles of how to start getting visible, right? Then my second book, Beyond Superstar, is level 2. And now that now I'm like, okay, you're on the red carpet, but now let's get you on the big screen. Let's get you to be the star of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I share Hollywood stories of what I learned being around these superstars, and then the daily Be Your Own Superstar techniques, strategies, tools, and tips of how to grow your internal love bucket capacity, because it's in direct alignment, right? And so that's the second book, and that'll be dropping October 23rd.
That's beautiful. Now, I hear you using this phrase a lot, and I actually heard our good friend Jennifer Orazio, who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, she had used she had used it either in her group, Spiritual Renegades, or on the podcast. I can't recall which, but I was just like, oh my gosh, it's that cool verbiage that Joey uses, and it's really beautiful to see it echo. So I want to talk about the echo, but I also want to dig deeper into the love bucket and this idea, because I also heard you talk about your mentor who had, money. He had such a big love bucket that he was able to attract these funds. But there's also this part that he didn't just hoard it. It was this flow, right? So let's talk about the love bucket a minute, and how you share that with people, the energy of it.
Yeah, so we are brought up to, actually, there is a philosophy out there that the reason people, like, we don't go after our big dreams is because we don't want to be criticized. Mm-hmm. And I'm agreeing with that. I'm saying yes. Okay, I agree with that. However, what I'm teaching is that I actually think we're quite comfortable with being criticized, because between the media that's pounding on us very early, what last name you're born into, where location, the kind of money you're born into, that all comes into play very, very young. We're getting those signals very young. People might not be saying it, but we're definitely getting the signal, right?
Sure. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that it's because the reason our dreams don't come to full fruition, and there's a lot of stop and go, is because it has to do with how much love capacity we can hold. We're not brought up to take in a lot of love. We're not taught in the school systems to. It's like, you got an A, you should have got an A plus. Mm-hmm. There's always that you should. You won last year, you guys got to win this year. Right? It's just constant. What I'm saying is that it's like, let's kick all that to the curb, because that's actually going in the back door. The front door is to set your dreams and your intentions, right? Get really clear on what it is that you want, really what that purpose, where your purpose wants to take you, and then set that to the side. Now go internal and say to yourself, how big is my capacity right now? Can it hold that? And you're like, no. So I'll have people say things to me like, let's just get superficial for a minute. They'll say things to me like, I want $1 million. I'm like, cool. I'm like, great. But can your internal love bucket capacity, can it hold $1 million? Because that's just love.
Yeah.
Right. So if someone walked up to you today and said, here you go, Michelle, here's $1 million. Do you have the capacity, because that's just an exchange of energies and love, to say absolutely, or would you want to start shrinking back into the shadows, right? And so my teachings is that I actually think we've been going in the back door for a very long time, right? Concentrating on these outcomes, and I'm like, set the intention, goal, dream outcome around the purpose, set that aside. Now just concentrate on just growing the capacity to hold it, and that's it. And it's love. Because when you're around superstars and you walk into a restaurant, for instance, this is what you hear. Okay. It might not be saying this, but this is the signals you're getting. I love you. 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 Think about how big their capacity has to be to hold that, just to walk into a restaurant.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, here, you know what? You don't have to pay your bill. It's on the house. People are like, can I take a picture with you? Can I get your signature? This is always being taught to me when I was walked in restaurants like with Will Smith, for instance, on Independence Day when we were traveling around the world for the press tour, right? But I wasn't connecting the dots yet. I just remember thinking, how does he do it? I remember going, I didn't even want to be near him or sit next to him because all that attention I was crashing and burning inside, right? It was too much for me, right?
Yeah.
But today, because I've been building my love bucket capacity, right? Not so much. I could probably handle it,
Yeah.
right? But that's the intention, right? So I ask everyone out there, I say to you, I say to people that are listening to this, because there will be people will be called that are ready to hear this, will be listening, and and I'm saying, start connecting the dots. I know you asked for to this, right? But
Mm-hmm.
does your capacity match it? And if it doesn't, grow it to it, right? But quit worrying about the outcome. That's not what it's about.
Right.
The
Right.
outcome's there, the goal's there, right? But the other is actually, Michelle, what it's really doing is it's taking a precious love of capacity, disappointment, sadness, shame, anger, right? Because you didn't get what you wanted, or you thought you were clear enough, or you went for it but it didn't happen anyways, or someone next to you got it instead of you. And I'm like, they're not more talented than you. Their capacity was just bigger.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah. It makes so much sense to me. And that doesn't mean it's easy, right? But it is very simple. And I love this idea, what you're talking about being this way to almost tweak or redefine self love, and not in the way of, oh, I'm going to take a bath tonight, or I'm going to have a cup of coffee, or, oh, I deserve this piece of chocolate. I have a challenge, excuse me, with the word deserve sometimes, right? Because we can feel entitled for the wrong reasons. And also, well, my friends told me that you deserve to take a vacation. Well, if it doesn't serve us, which is the root of deserve, right? There's a disconnect. And so I really love this idea of this love bucket capacity being a self-love, but in the most holistic sense, right? You never said self-love, and yet it's there, it's implied. And it really departs from the normal self-love messages that we get that sometimes fall short. I mean, what you're really saying is, do you love yourself enough? Do you feel yourself worthy enough to receive that and let that energy pass through you?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes. The Listen, there's so much room for self-care and self-love
Right.
out there,
Right.
and I'm so grateful to all that, because we've all learned so much from those teachings.
Mm-hmm.
But this teaching is I don't want people to get bogged down into, if I just journal another page on that outcome, I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I'm like my teachings is again, that's why I'm this is very listen, this is taking all of me to do this. I mean, I've had to dig real deep, right? Because I'm actually making myself the new face of love. Like, who does that? Like, I didn't want
Right.
I honestly did not want to do it, right? But I had a dream, right? And a lot of downloads will come through dreams, and they're like, you gotta do it,
Mm.
and I'm like, because what I'm trying to show the marketplace is let's get away from that, like that we have no control over these things. And if I just affirmation this one more time, and one more journal, and one more self-care, and of
Right.
course I
Right.
want that for everyone, of course. But what I'm saying is that as a society, we're so caught up in the actual intention goal piece of it,
Yeah.
that we're missing the front door. And this is for me to bring to the masses, this teachings. I talk about this in the book. And it's very scary for me to talk about some of that stuff, about my dreams, or who's come through, or who's talked to me. But I did have a dream where literally I was being yelled at, like they were yelling at me from above, and they're like, what more do we need to do for you to get this, right? And I remember, and this bolt of lightning came like at me so fast and so strongly, I like woke up and I sat up in bed and I was like, like I caught my breath,
Mm.
and I was just like, yes, I understand, right? And in essence, some of my teachings, I feel like I'm doing the same. I'm kind of like with, screaming like with the paparazzi and the spotlights and the love bucket capacity. I'm just pounding on the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there needs to be a wake up call. This other goal setting and intention setting is so gorgeous and it changed my life, but some of it is very male driven. Just do it, just do it,
Yes.
just do it. And I'm like, stop. I'm like, stop. I'm like, because sister, the disappointment and the
Mm.
sadness, I have so much empathy for it because I've been there, and it's taken up so much of my capacity that it was just one little slice of my love was there that got through, and it was like crawling through and just like pushing through so hard, right?
Yeah.
And it's because I was so focused out here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm like, yes, get clear. I have intentions, I have goals, I have dreams. They've all been written down, right? But then put them to the side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Build that love bucket muscle, right? And let me tell you, they'll show up, but they'll show up and it will blow your mind. Yeah, it will outblow your goals and your outcomes to points where you'll be like, no way. There's no way. And I'm like, yeah, there is. There is, and there will be, right? Because that's the real work. That's the real work.
It's funny that you say that. It really is. That's the soul work, right? It's easy to write goals. It's easy to envision. I mean, it's actually easier than we think to imagine. We're really good at imagining the negative often through worry and other things, but it's easier
Totally.
than we think to imagine the good things too. But to really sit with it, to lay aside the masculine, like you said, once it's all written down and you've got your affirmations and your goals, but to sit in the feminine power
Yeah.
of what you call love bucket capacity is amazing. And it's probably the hardest thing that we ever do. And yet it is the most powerful.
I had a friend pass away a couple years ago, really close and very sudden. The way it happened and I was at his funeral. I was sitting at his funeral, and I was like, okay, it's it, it it's time. And I knew who was in front of me. I knew,
Mhm.
but I was like, but if not now, when? And and I had, and I'm such a fan of Miracle Morning. Miracle Morning has been such a game changer in my life, because it's very structural, right?
Mhm.
Such a fan of that. And there are pieces to that, to the Be Your Own Superstar Daily Love Bucket Capacity Habits. However, I was just like, we're being over inundated by the mansion, the car, the this, the that, the young ones are too. And so when it doesn't happen, when it doesn't come at the level that's out there, it just all turns into shame and guilt and sadness and disappointment. And that's that starts filling up real fast, right? But work on your love bucket and being able to take in massive amounts of love every day, right? That's when you're going to go to a whole different level, right? And I watch others out there who've just taken it to a whole, just beyond, right? And one of them was Oprah. And whether you like Oprah or not, that's not what I'm talking about. It's just to watch that she's like literally a household name. I'm like, how big is her capacity to be a household name? Think about that. She didn't come from money. She didn't come
Right.
from a last name. Her back, her upbringing. It's intense.
Mhm.
We all know her story, right? And yet she's a household name. And I think I read the other day she's worth, I think, $1 billion, right? I'm like, how much capacity of love do you have to take in for $1 billion, right? But the reason I'm using these stories and the reason I'm talking about these people in my second book is because I want people to see themselves in it and say, okay, I can do this too. I'm like, yes. We're all capable, and it's actually everyone's birthright, right? But you got to say yes, you got to get clear, and then you got to work on your capacity, because that shame and that guilt is taking up a lot of capacity.
Thank you for saying that too. It's so true, right? Because our buckets are always full of something, but what
Yeah.
do we really want them to be full of? I want to say this about how you show up online, and using these stories, whether it's Will Smith or Oprah Winfrey or whoever these major names are that we can feel very far removed from. I love that what you do when you show up online is not only use those stories, but you also use the stories of the people you work with and the people that you're surrounded by, that you surround yourself with, whether they've hired you or not. I see you being so generous and really saying, you're not Will Smith. Like you said before, it's not that they're better or more talented or more beautiful. There's that capacity. So when you work with someone like Sheila Kennedy, or you work with someone like Kat Williford, and seeing the way that just interactions, right, of how these people are starting to and they may have had for a while. I mean, they're both amazingly beautiful people, and I'm honored to know them. But like, you do this for them as well, is what I'm saying. You do it for me. You do it for everyone you're surrounded with. So what you really do is you bridge that gap between this unreachable, um, Hollywood or whatever that seems so far removed, and that we can tend to have even a love-hate relationship with it, right? So there's that other level of disconnect, but what you do is you connect it down to this level here, and it just explodes into this just massive love ball. It's beautiful to watch.
I mean, what my hope and my intention, right? And let me tell you, I've been working on my love bucket capacity here, big time. Is is that everyone out there knows that there's no wall between the two. There's no
Right.
there's we're all on the same playing field. That's what I want everyone to know. I'm like, every single person globally is on the same playing field,
Yeah.
right? It's just a matter if it's just a matter of that tweak, and then working on that. When I first started Love Bucket Capacity, I was beta testing it, right? Because I
Mhm.
needed to beta test it, and I was beta testing it, and I would get up some days, and I would just go on social media, and there was so much love that was being poured on me that I almost had to go take a nap, right? Because it was exhausting me, right? Because we're not brought up to take in massive amounts of love. We're not,
Yeah.
right? I don't care what family you're from. You could be from the most loving family in the world, but media is pounding on you. Society's pounding on you, right? And
Mhm.
so I would almost have to go take a nap. And now now it's just like I'm able to lean into it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But so we're on equal playing fields. So anyone can do this. Anyone. Doesn't matter your ethnicity, doesn't matter what you do for a living, doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. This is a tool that is at everyone's fingertip, that anyone can do globally, and to sit in it. And I'll tell you, I'll watch people that are practicing it, that my clients that are practicing it. Sister, they don't even recognize themselves, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's just like, and then they're able to take in more and take in more and take in more love, right? And they stop focusing and getting all wrapped up in the want and the I need, and they stop doing that, right?
Yeah.
They lighten up. Things are more at ease, right? Because you're focused over here daily, consistently, as often as you can, and then you're able to receive. You're able to receive. I can receive. I couldn't receive what I received today. I couldn't have received 3 years ago. There's no way. I just didn't have the capacity. Couldn't have done it. That girl who's sitting at that funeral couldn't have done it, and that made me very, very, very sad.
Mm.
Very sad. And first I had to start healing that, right? and then push out the disappointment, and then push out the shame, and push out all that other stuff, and start feeling it, right? And so now when people are like, I love you, 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 right? It's easier, and I lean in, and I want, and you start craving it. Start craving it, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. Well, we're running out of time, so I want to let everyone know where you're.
Michelle, we could talk about the love capacity all day and all night, sister.
It's true. It's true. And of course, there's always an open invitation to come back, because I've had people on multiple times. Let's have you come back around the time your book publishes.
My capacity says yes. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. So appreciate you.
You're welcome. So before I get to what's normally my signature question when I remember, I want to ask you where people can find you.
Sure. So they can find me at 113branding.com.
Right.
You can also find me on my Facebook group, which is Superstar Women Entrepreneurs. You can find me online, and and reach out, because I'll reach right back.
Yeah. So I want to say Joie's name is Joie, the joie of joy of life, the French joy, and Gharrity, Gharrity. I promise that if you Google her name, you'll find her wherever you need to find her. Twitter and Facebook. She's got a Facebook page, the beautiful Facebook group. She is so generous, and I encourage you to look her up and connect with her. Check out her already published book, and start tapping your fingers for that new book to come out, but not while waiting to open your own love bucket. Do that in the meantime. I promise you'll be much more blessed by her book when it does publish. So Joie, again, thank you for being on Old Soul Sojourn with me. My last question for you is, what is your definition of an old soul?
I would say my definition of an old soul is giving ourselves permission to know that we've been here. Like, this isn't our first rodeo. I had my Akashic Records reading done a few years back, and that was my first question: how many times have I been here, right? And I've been here 701 times.
Wow.
Right? So, and I'm like, and one, and they're like 701.
And
right?
what?
So it's giving ourselves permission to know that we've been here. We've been around the block.
Yeah.
But yet we're still, every day is still a new experience, a new stretch, a new growth, right? And then, and just making peace with that.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thought, I think, because life is an adventure, and all of the former lives are adventures. And really your outlook determines what you'll get out of this one, for sure. So yeah. Again, Joie Gharrity with 113 Branding, thank you again for sojourning with us today, and we look forward to having you back again.
I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, Michelle, and I appreciate you, sister.
Thank you. Right back at you. My love bucket is already expanding. Thank you. And my name is Michelle Janae. This has been Old Soul Sojourn for Old Soul Archaeology. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, dare to dig deep.